You may want to say something about the large fleet of ships that's heading over to the Middle East.
Well, Mr. President, you had to, like so many other cabinet members have referenced, rebuild the perception of America. And at the Department of War, that meant reestablishing deterrence. What happened in Afghanistan, what happened in Ukraine, a war that never would have occurred, what happened on October 7th in Israel, never would have happened under President Trump. So as a result, we're having to rebuild how our enemies perceive us. And when President Trump said, we're not getting a nuclear, Iran, you won't have a nuclear bomb, he meant it. And we sent those B-2s halfway around the world, and they never noticed. When he said, we're not going to tolerate trafficking drugs anymore in our hemisphere, we treat them like the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere, he meant it, and we're executing that. When you said, Mr. President, we're securing the border, the military was proud to do their part alongside Homeland Security to do that. Same thing with Iran right now, ensuring that they have all the options to make a deal. They should not pursue nuclear capabilities. We will be prepared to deliver whatever this president expects of the War Department.
Warships are quietly sliding into position, radar screens glowing through the night as a warning echoes across the region that this moment could change everything. The United States has significantly expanded its military footprint in the Middle East, and the message being sent is unmistakable. Washington is preparing for any outcome, and Iran is at the center of the storm. Rebuilding U.S. deterrence has become the absolute core goal for an administration that is framing every movement as a necessary effort to restore America's global credibility. Following the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the outbreak of wars in Ukraine and Israel, the focus in Washington has shifted toward reestablishing a presence that ensures adversaries perceive the U.S. as both capable and willing to act with overwhelming force. Over recent days, the naval presence has reached a level of intensity not seen in years. Another Navy destroyer, the USS Delbert D. Black, has been deployed to the theater, bringing the total number of U.S. destroyers in the area to 6. These high-tech vessels are operating alongside 3 additional combat ships and the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, a massive floating airbase that carries with it a complement of advanced strike fighters, dramatically raising the stakes of any potential encounter. The composition of this force is precise. The Lincoln's air wing boasts state-of-the-art F-35C Lightning II jets, E-2D Hawkeye surveillance planes, and F/A-18 Super Hornets. In support, the USS Frank E. Peterson Jr., USS Spruance, and USS Michael Murphy are positioned strategically, while the USS Georgia, a nuclear-powered guided missile submarine, looms in the Mediterranean, capable of launching over 150 Tomahawk cruise missiles. Together, this force represents one of the most formidable concentrations of American naval power seen in the region in recent history. The buildup is not occurring in isolation or secrecy. It is unfolding in full view of allies, adversaries, and global observers. This transparency is a deliberate signal that Washington is prepared for multiple contingencies, ranging from precision strikes to full-scale defensive operations. At the heart of this spiraling tension is President Donald Trump's blunt and highly public warning to Iran. On January 28, 2026, he declared on Truth Social that a massive armada is moving toward the country, a phrase carefully selected to capture global attention, and emphasized that his commitment to preventing a nuclear Iran is a firm promise backed by real military action, not rhetoric alone. Trump's language reflects a strategy of maximum visibility and pressure, using military strength as leverage to influence Tehran's decisions before any kinetic conflict begins. For the administration, the goal is to make the cost of defiance painfully clear, removing any doubt about the consequences of continuing down a nuclear path. The context of this buildup is even more critical when looking at the domestic situation inside Iran. Since late December 2025, a wave of protests has swept across more than 100 Iranian cities, sparked by an economic collapse and hyperinflation exceeding 40%. The regime's response has been brutal, with reports suggesting security forces have killed between 1,000 and 12,000 protesters during a near-total internet blackout. President Trump has signaled that help is on the way for the Iranian people, linking the military buildup not just to nuclear concerns, but to the regime's treatment of its own citizens. As American warships gather in the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean, Regional allies are working frantically behind the scenes to prevent the situation from tipping into outright confrontation. Several Middle Eastern countries, including Turkey, are reportedly attempting to broker diplomatic talks aimed at lowering tensions and finding a path toward de-escalation. Turkey's involvement is particularly notable, given its unique position as a NATO member that also relies on Iran for roughly 15% of its natural gas. President Erdogan has proposed a trilateral mediation framework, even offering a teleconference between Trump and Iranian President Pezeshkian. These leaders are attempting to mediate between Washington and Tehran to prevent an escalation that could destabilize the entire region, threatening vital trade routes and global energy supplies. These diplomatic efforts highlight the widespread anxiety that any conflict between the U.S. and Iran would not remain contained to a single theater. Inside Washington, the Pentagon is projecting a message of total confidence and full preparedness. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has publicly stated that the Department of War is ready to execute any order from the president, particularly those aimed at stopping Iran from pursuing nuclear weapons. This military posture is designed for total flexibility, allowing for defense, deterrence, surveillance, or offensive action depending on how the situation develops on the ground. The presence of the USS Abraham Lincoln, combined with more than 80 C-17 strategic transport flights and 35 F-15E Strike Eagles recently deployed to Jordan, ensures that the president has a full spectrum of options at his disposal. This buildup cannot be viewed in a vacuum. It is deeply shaped by the history that precedes it. Previous strikes on Iran's nuclear program, specifically Operation Midnight Hammer in June 2025, which struck facilities at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, influence how both sides interpret today's actions. For Tehran, the memory of those 12 days of conflict, which reportedly killed over 1,000 personnel, makes the current armada a threat that must be taken seriously. They understand that the red lines being drawn are not static. For Washington, these past actions serve as the essential foundation for the deterrence they are currently trying to rebuild, proving that American threats are followed by American action. Despite the heavy military presence, the administration's ultimate strategic objective remains the subject of intense debate among global analysts. Observers are unsure if the goal is nuclear containment through a New Deal, punishment for the crackdown on protesters, the protection of regional allies like Israel, or creating enough regime pressure to force a fundamental change in Tehran's leadership. This uncertainty adds to the regional anxiety and significantly increases the risk of a miscalculation as each side tries to read the other's true intentions. While the public sees warships and headlines, much of the real maneuvering may be happening through covert diplomacy, cyber operations, or intelligence activities in the shadows. The force structure currently deployed is not a single-purpose tool. It is a layered defense and offense system designed to provide Washington with maximum flexibility. The destroyers are equipped for both ballistic missile defense and precision land attack capabilities, while the Carrier Strike Group offers a mobile platform for long-range airstrikes and continuous surveillance. This allows the U.S. to respond quickly to developments, whether it be a sudden provocation from a proxy group or a shift in Iran's nuclear posture. The message to the world is that the U.S. military is no longer in a reactive state, but is actively shaping the environment to its advantage. As the U.S. military buildup continues and diplomatic efforts race against time, the situation remains fluid and highly unpredictable. A high-stakes meeting is already scheduled for Friday, February 6, 2026, in Istanbul, where Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi are expected to meet. What happens next will depend on these discussions and whether Tehran believes the massive armada is truly ready to fulfill its mission with speed and violence. The concentration of naval power, the sharp rhetoric from the White House, and the quiet push for diplomacy together paint a picture of a world on edge. This moment underscores how quickly tensions can rise and how important careful judgment becomes when the costs of a single mistake are so high. The world is watching, waiting to see if this buildup will be the instrument of a new peace or the catalyst for a conflict that redefines the Middle East for generations to come. To stay informed as this story develops and more updates unfold, hit the subscribe button for future uploads.